I know what's coming.
Iceland's so cool. It's like I'm looking for someone to eat for dinner, and every other result on Google Maps is fish and chips.
Mobile fish and chips.
Fish and chips. I want it.
I'll just do 2 orders of fish and chips. So I'm in Iceland, and I just found out that the UK went to war with Iceland several times between the 50s and the 70s over one thing: fish and chips. I'm not kidding. There were 3 conflicts between the 50s and the 70s over fish that they used for fish and chips.
Let's have some fish and chips.
Fish and chips. This is real. I want to tell you the story. Buckle up. Yeah? What kind of fish is it?
It's cod.
Would you like some fish and chips?
Iceland. It is, above all, the home of the vital fishing industry.
NATO's banner flies proudly.
The Icelanders unilaterally extended their fishing limit to 12 miles.
Yes, I know. I have done fish wars in multiple different permutations, from India, Sri Lanka, prawn wars, to US-Canada fish wars. Well, here's another installment of how fish make it really hard to draw borders because they live in the ocean, and so countries fight over them. To understand why the UK would go to war with Iceland, you have to understand fish and chips. Fish and chips are a giant deal in the UK. It's like, I need to get those stats up. 1/4 of Britons eat fish and chips once per week.
First thing I think we ought to take a look at is an English pub.
Pubs all around the country serve millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of meals of fish and chips every year. It is an institution. It is a part of the cultural fabric. However, Britain doesn't have enough fish to upkeep this demand for fish and chips. So where do they turn to?
Iceland.
So the fish that they use for fish and chips is called cod. Cod is a delicious, buttery, creamy fish. But do you know who else loves cod? Iceland. In fact, you might argue that Iceland loves cod more than any other country on Earth.
If you need proof of how much Iceland loves cod, you just gotta go into one of these grocery stores and you will see it right on the shelves.
Okay, who wants to try some dried, aged cod? So yeah, Iceland loves cod. In fact, they used to have cod on their coat of arms, like it is a part of their national identity. And to understand why they love cod so much, you just need to look at the oceans around this island. These waters surrounding Iceland here in the North Atlantic are some of the most well-stocked waters on Earth with fish, especially cod. This country has relied for centuries and continues to rely deeply on fish. I've been driving all around this country, deep into the West Fjords and all around every region of this country. Everywhere I go, I see fish and fishermen and fishing infrastructure. The lifeblood of this country of Iceland is fish. So you can see where this is going. The British love their fish and chips, which comes from cod. Iceland loves their fish generally, especially their cod. And for centuries, this hasn't been a problem. Iceland has been able to fish their abundant waters, and Britain was also able to come into these waters and fish them for themselves. But after World War II, that started to change.
Hey there. Like, crack them open, put them on a pan?
Yep, you can do that too.
You guys, I bought eggs from a bird. I don't really know what it is, but
Doing okay?
Why'd you? There's real. Nope.
We are eating these eggs.
We're gonna eat them?
we're going to eat these eggs.
Oh no!
Man, it feels so good to be on the road again. After a year and a half home. So good.
Total war patterned by the Nazis for all Europe comes at last to Germany.
You have to understand that after World War II, the entire world changed. Suddenly you have these superpowers, especially the United States, calling the shots on what a new economic world order was going to look like. And that came with a lot of trade. Suddenly, if you had an abundance of some resource, you could ship it somewhere else and make money for your country. So Iceland started to participate more and more in the global fish trade. They had so much fish in their waters outside of their country, and they were like, we should just start like shipping this abundance to other people and making money for our country. But when they started to go out into their waters to fish more and more, what they saw was a bunch of British fishermen out in their waters who had been fishing there for years.
Well, hello there, chaps.
And the British were like, well, you don't technically have any claim over this water. It's technically international waters. You've never claimed it, so we can fish here. And Iceland was like, you're right. Let's change that. Iceland's territorial waters, where they exclusively could fish, only extended 4 nautical miles off their coast. Not very much. The British were like, cool, like we don't need to go into your little 4-mile zone. So Iceland, this tiny country, was like, we're going to extend it to 12 miles. The British were now technically fishing inside of Icelandic waters. But Britain, one of the most powerful countries in the world, was like, cool, there's this island nation of 170,000 people with no military, and they've just declared that their boundary goes 12 miles into the ocean. Cool, and they totally ignored it.
Try and stop me.
So it's the 1950s, Britain is fishing their fishing ships cod off the coast of Iceland, and Iceland has no navy. They have no way of really enforcing this besides their Coast Guard. So they send their Coast Guard out to detain the fishermen, the British fishermen, and this works for like 2 seconds until the British sends in their like legit navy to scare off the Coast Guard. And thus begins the Cod Wars.
I want to say thank you to today's sponsor, which is Skillshare. I've used Skillshare for many, many years, long before they came to sponsor a YouTube video. Skillshare is a giant repository of amazing classes and tutorials on every subject you can imagine. It's a huge community of curious people who want to learn different skills, from Photoshop to Illustrator to entrepreneurial skills. They even have classes on meditation. There's one about meditation for creativity, which I am a big fan of. The cool thing about Skillshare is you pay one monthly price and you get unlimited access to all of these tutorials and classes and courses. Skillshare is offering the first 1,000 people who click the link in my description 1 month for free of Skillshare, unlimited access to all of this material. In 1 month's time of free Skillshare, you could take dozens of these classes and learn tons. So Skillshare is for the creative, entrepreneurial, anyone who wants to learn. Skillshare is a fantastic place for you. So click that link in my description. Doing so, signing up, helps support this channel, but it also gets you a month free of Skillshare. Thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video.
So it's now like the 1950s, and the Icelandic Coast Guard is holding their ground. They're showing up to the ocean whenever they see British ships, and they are confronting the Royal Navy. They're not backing down, even though they are a tiny country with no firepower and no leverage. They're not backing down because they freaking love cod.
It's delicious.
I'm like, dude, Iceland, punching above your weight here. This is amazing. And guess what? It works. The Royal Navy backs down, and Britain finally recognizes this 12 nautical mile boundary that Iceland unilaterally declared for themselves. The first Cod War is over.
And now we are entering the West Fjords. Hold on, look at a map.
We're in this RV and I'm not really sure it's gonna handle these gravel roads, but we will quickly find out if it does handle these gravel roads. I'm just excited to see Iceland at some of its most rugged. Here we go. So now we are in Cod Peace. Cod Peace lasts for about 10 years, but Britain is getting tired of their expensive cod for their fish and chips. They want more cod, and Iceland is the place to get it, so they come back. So British ships are now showing up into the Iceland zone, leaving the waters depleted. Iceland will not have this. They freaking love their cod. They are not gonna let Britain steal it. So they decide to up the ante, and they declare a 50 nautical mile boundary. They're like, all of this water is now ours, back off, Britain. This really pissed off Britain, and not just Britain, but also West Germany and Denmark, because now Iceland's water expansion was now getting into the waters of these other countries who had fisheries in this area. But Iceland didn't care. They're like, listen, we love cod. This is like the best fishing in all of the Atlantic. We are not backing down, even though we have no army and we only have 170,000 people.
I'm not fucking leaving!
Cue Cod Wars number 2.
Again without international legal backing, they increased this to 50 miles.
The UK took this one to court first, and international arbitration ruled in favor of the UK. They're like, dude, Iceland, you can't just extend your waters 50 nautical miles into the ocean. You can't do that. And guess what Iceland said?
Yeah, well, just watch me.
And they just totally ignored it. So even though the most powerful countries in the world, plus some of their friends, and an international court ruled against Iceland, Iceland dug in their heels and was like,
I'm not fucking leaving!
Britain is getting tired of this. They're like, come on guys, we need to fish these waters, we need our fish and chips. Like, you have no standing here, we're done. So they send in their navy once again. The British Navy decides to escalate things a little bit and start ramming the Icelandic Coast Guard boats.
Continued the skirmish, which ended in yet another.
No more warning shots, no more soft core standoffs. We are now ramming each other. This leads to a series of standoffs in the North Atlantic between Icelandic Coast Guard and the Royal Navy, the most powerful navy on Earth. Man, these fish and chips people, they love their fish and chips.
It's really good. It's delicious.
So, does Iceland back down in the Second Cod War and say, okay, fine, the international court ruled against us, Britain and West Germany and Denmark don't like this, we're just gonna chill out? No, they didn't. They kept it up. And in fact, they decided to pull out their one major piece of leverage in all of this, which was their alliance with NATO.
NATO land is composed of 14 different nations with a combined army 7 million strong.
Easily my favorite part about Iceland is that you can be driving through some random mountain pass, like we've been doing, at midnight, and you can wander upon waterfall after waterfall after waterfall that are just there. They're just there. Just look at this waterfall that I'm looking at. It is insane. Iceland was a member of NATO.
NATO was founded April 4, 1949, by 12 nations of widely different languages and customs. During its 6 years, NATO has well proved its power for peace.
And they occupied a fairly important role because of where they exist. They exist right here in the North Atlantic, a very strategic place. So Iceland decides to pull out their wild card, the thing that they've been holding on to this whole time, which is, we will withdraw from NATO if you do not recognize our 50 nautical mile boundary of the ocean. If Iceland withdraws from NATO because of something the British did, the US is gonna be pissed at Britain.
Let go of it!
Tell that bitch to be cool.
I'm gonna kill you!
Say, bitch, be cool.
Be cool, honey.
Say, bitch, be cool. Tell that fucking bitch to chill.
Be cool,
Chill that fucking bitch out.
So Britain was like, okay, fine, you win. 50 miles, you got it.
Gosh darn it, I give up. It's yours, you can have it.
Cod Wars episode 2 is over. Iceland wins again. So this is now the second time that Iceland, this tiny country with no military, has like bested One of the most powerful countries on earth, all because of fish. They freaking love fish here. Like, don't mess with Iceland's fish. But this isn't over. It's the 1970s, and we are about to commence Cod War Episode 3, Return of the Cod.
Officially made it to the westernmost point of Europe. I think that's right. I mean, we tried to say we were in the westernmost point of Europe like 2 years ago in this moment.
Just a 30-minute drive outside of downtown Sintra is the westernmost point of continental Europe.
And yeah, that obviously wasn't, I mean, it was like continental Europe. So now here we are again, the westernmost point of Europe right here. I don't know where we are, but we're really freaking west. We've been driving for like 4 hours on dirt roads to get to this cliff on this very tip of Iceland in the West Fjords. And we're here to see puffins. What are we here to see, son?
Look, puffins?
Yes. I'm waiting for you, Big Teen. Man, these puffins are just right here. They were just right under our nose the whole time. Look at this. I mean, I guess I'd seen puffins like on Instagram or something, but I had no idea just how striking these birds are. Photographing these birds today has been it's really helped me appreciate them.
Episode 3 is basically a repeat of the last 2 episodes. The British move into these waters to get their little fish because they want fish and chips, more ramming, tons more ramming, more standoffs. Britain is not okay with this tiny country pushing them around. I mean, it's Britain. They're used to literally taking over any country they want in the whole world. And they're being told what to do by this little tiny island nation. They're not liking it. What I love about Iceland is that they don't just dig in their heels and not concede. They always push it a little bit further. So this time they're like, we don't just want 50 nautical miles, we want 200 nautical miles off our coast for exclusive fishing. Britain is like, no, this is not good. How are we getting bested every time we try to fish? This got so bad that the UK and Iceland actually broke off diplomatic relations. They were like really angry at each other until the Americans come in and they're like, dude, stop it. NATO, the Cold War, nuclear weapons, like stop crying over your fish and chips. We have bigger priorities.
Chill out, dickwad.
And so they backed down and they recognized the 200 nautical mile claim that Iceland was asserting. Turns out, a couple years later, the UN developed the United Nations Convention and Law of the Sea, a big document that actually codifies that every country gets 200 nautical miles of exclusive economic activity. But Iceland was already thinking in these terms. They're like the exclusive economic zone hipsters. Like, they were far ahead of everyone else.
There are always sheep on the side of the road here, including loads of baby sheep that are so precious. It always seems like they're about to dart out in front of the side of the road, giving us loads of anxiety, but they're very cute. Izzy's never seen reindeer before, so she's taking in the reindeer. Wow. Pretty special, huh?
Unbelievable.
So, what did the Cod Wars teach us? Well, as an international relations guy, I'm sort of like, this doesn't square up with a lot of the theories that I learned in school. In school, we learned that when countries trade with each other and when they're bound by alliances, they tend to cooperate better than ever. In this case, what you see is countries that are bound to each other through alliance and through trade who are not cooperating because they are bound to each other by trade and institutions. In fact, one of the major bargaining chips in the war was the fact that Iceland was going to withdraw from NATO. They used the institution as leverage.
We have declared that Icelandic law will be upheld, and I have on that score nothing more to say.
All of that is to say, this is a super unique case of a tiny country using its leverage to basically make one of the most powerful countries in the world concede, and it totally worked.
This is me. All right, I'm not a fucking athlete. This is my fucking way. This is how I win.
But the bigger lesson for me is, and the thing I'm going to take away is, don't f with Iceland when it comes to fish. Okay, see you later.